Okay, so we are recording, just so everybody in the group knows here. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Blake Litzow. I am the office coordinator in the Kearney International Center. I've been here since October of 2021, so this will be my second full academic year here going on for fall. And we're going to talk about, at least on my side, the on-campus work permit presentation piece, and then I'll let Kayleen introduce herself.
So I'm Kayleen Gort. I'm the student payroll coordinator. I started here at MSU in March, so this is going to be my first time going through this fall semester. So I'm not totally sure what to expect, but I've heard it's a lot. So I'm eager to work with everyone and hopefully be able to help you guys out and answer some questions.
Awesome. Well, to get us started off here, to jump in right away. So right now I'm sharing my screen here for our Social Security card and on-campus work permit webpage. So for starters, the very first thing that a student should be doing before they start this process is they should be securing a job. And that can mean different things for different students. So if that's an undergrad, it usually means something, they're going on a handshake, or they're talking with their academic department, or they're talking with someone that they met on campus and they're getting a job offer. And sometimes that can be somewhat informal. For a grad student, that could mean that they have their offer letter as their assistantship. So it can mean different things depending on the student. But generally speaking, before a student can start the work permit process, they first need a job offer. And then as part of that, so basically the first thing that happens, you as the employer will fill out this step 1 here. So this is what's called the employment verification form. So this is for our F1 international or J1 exchange students for on-campus employment. And it looks like this form right here. So if you've ever hired an international student or an exchange student, this is the kind of our version of the offer letter. So this is the form that students will use and take with to their Social Security visit. So basically what happens is all employers, when they want to hire someone, they will fill out this form. And then once they fill out this form and sign it, then they will upload it to this upload link here, and they'll fill out the student's information. And again, that's just right below the verification form here. So you'll fill out this form and this link, and then you'll upload it to this link. Just as a reminder, this cannot be done as a paper copy and handed in to our office anymore. It has to go through this online step here. Big things to make sure on this piece is make sure that the student's name, their full legal name on their immigration documents, not their preferred name, is spelled out, and that their proper tech ID and their MNSU email address is entered correctly. If any of those things are not entered correctly, it can cause confusion or delays in the processing of the work permit, because we rely on, when we get a lot of work permits submitted, we rely on that information to be accurate, so we can search through our records and easily find a student's paperwork and their request form if they come in and ask about it. One update from last year, from our video that I posted last year, is that for this form, the F1 under J1 on-campus employment form, you as the supervisor or hiring department need to enter the student's MSU email. It can no longer be a personal email address. The reason for that is with our updated Microsoft form, their requirement is that it has to be an email that's linked with our system. So it has to be their school email. One potential issue with this is that a lot of the new incoming students are not going to have access to they might not necessarily have access to their school email right away. So there is this link here over the page. So this is the link for students to get set up with their MAV mail if it's their first time signing in. So you can see here it says if you're a new student, they have to set up their multi-factor authentication. Excuse me. So they'll click on this link here. That will take them to this page. And then this page, again, gives instructions for the multi-factor authentication. So if they click on the complete setup here, it'll go to another page. And this gives step-by-step instructions of how to download and enter all the appropriate settings for that. And then there's even a, where is it here? This video tutorial I watched before our meeting here. And IT made this, and it's very informative and very helpful. So if even after going through all this, if a student has questions, IT told me that even as a new incoming student, if they're not here yet, they can still reach out to the IT department through the support ticket, through email, or through the phone, and they'd be more than happy to help walk them through this. One just kind of added note with this is part of the reason for this is that if students do not yet have a US phone number, so most students, if they're still in their home country and they're not here yet, they're probably not going to have a US phone number unless they've been here already. So then that's why they need to set up this Microsoft Authenticator app, which allows them to get logged into their MAV mail. If students are having issues with this, if they either don't have the ability or just don't have the time or whatever happens, it might just be easiest for them to wait till they're here, because at the end of the day, yes, it's nice for them to get started on this work permit. However, they can't complete it until they're here anyway, just to name a few things. So the student needs to complete the tax forms and sign physically in person. And those, so that's the federal and state W-4s, the I-9 and the student payroll tax residency form, as well as the I-94 and travel history. And the I-94 and travel history, the student won't even get that until they actually travel to the US for the first time. So in addition to applying for a social security card, among other things, it's, I would say, well over half of their to-do list for the on-campus work permit. They have to typically wait till they're here anyway. So again, yes, it's nice that they get started early, but it's really not the end of the world if they can't start until they get here. And then we have, as part of orientation week, we partner with the IT department, and we have information sessions where the student, if they're struggling with this setup, they can get help with setting all of these things up. So getting back to the, I go back to the work permit webpage here. So once you as the employer submit this verification form, you and the student will receive an automated email with a link to fill out the work permit application. So you as the employer, you're just copied on it, but the student will get that email to their MNSU email, and then there'll be a link for them to click on, and that will give them step-by-step instructions for the work permit processing. I haven't seen it very often, but for some strange reason, sometimes the email goes to students' junk folders. I haven't seen that much lately, but maybe just if they say they haven't gotten it, have them verify that their email was entered correctly on the form, and then maybe have them check their junk folder. And then another reminder, so we do require that students upload all requested forms and accurately fill out the work permit application in the link that they're provided in the email. If not, that can cause significant delays, and if we have to ask them follow-up questions to get more things submitted, then it just takes more and more time to process everything. So if it's sorry, I got ahead of myself there. So this part right here, this which you can see on my screen, this is a copy. It looks just a little tiny bit different because this is from a couple of summers ago, but it's going to look very similar to this email here. So if they say that they lost the email or can't find it, if you just have them search for the subject line, it'll say work permit next steps required. They should be able to find the email. I just had a student this morning who said they couldn't find it, and I had them search work permit in the search bar in their email, and they found it right away. So these items here that I'm showing on the screen, these are kind of a little bit more specific instructions for each step of the process. So I'll kind of go through each of these real quickly. If the student if they're applying for their first time on campus work permit, and when I say on campus, I mean university employment. So if a student works for Sodexo, Barnes & Noble, or Affinity Plus, sometimes they will tell you that they already have a work permit or that they already work on campus. That is partially true, but they don't have they've never had a university job where they're set up through student payroll. So sometimes it's important to clarify that with the student. I know our office has to try to explain that difference a lot, and it is somewhat confusing for the student to try to explain to them that yes, you worked on campus, but Sodexo isn't actually a university employer. But anyway, so if it's a student's first time applying for a work permit, they do need to basically fill out the entire work permit application, and as part of that, the form will ask them to schedule a mandatory, it's up to an up to 30-minute meeting with their KIC staff. During that meeting, a few things that we do is we help them with the tax forms, if they have questions on that. We don't fill it out for them, but we do have a guide as kind of just a general tool in order to help them if they have no idea how to get started. We also help give them instructions on how to apply for their social security card. Again, as another reminder, in order for students to go through this process, they do need some sort of job offer before they can do all of this. And as far as for them, before they can go apply for a social security card, that's where that employment verification form that's signed by you as their employer and our KIC staff, that's very important because that tells the Social Security office that that student has a work offer, and without that, they won't be able to get their social. A couple points to make along the same lines, but maybe a little bit in a different direction. So if any of you are trying to hire incoming graduate students who have assistantships, I've started in the last couple of weeks recommending that those grad students on assistantships arrive hopefully at least 2 or 3 business days before you want them to begin their job assignments, especially if they don't have a social security card, because the Social Security office has explained to me a couple times that it takes sometimes a day or 2 for the systems to talk to each other, for the immigration systems to talk to the Social Security Administration systems. So if a student goes to the Social Security office prematurely, that could cause issues with their application. I've had some students not be able to submit everything. I've had some students submit everything and then have significant delays. And sometimes they don't get their Social Security card for several months and it causes them a lot of headaches. So it's very important that if a student asks you questions about their social visit, that you direct them to us, because we will explain all the steps to them. And also that part about them arriving early is very important, because if they don't arrive at least 2 business days before you want to have them start, they probably won't be able to start on time, because it's going to take at least 2 business days before they can go to their Social Security appointment. Along those same lines, so students can begin their work assignment before they have their Social Security card. They just need their receipt from the Social Security appointment. So what they do is we give them instructions. They go to the Social Security office with various documents, including that employment verification form that you sign. And then they will come back to our office, or they will scan and email us a copy of the receipt that they get. And that receipt is basically explaining to them that they'll get their card in usually 2 or 3 weeks to their home address. And in the meantime, they can begin working as long as they have the work permit from our KIC team and it's signed by our office. A couple notes about the Social Security office. So they are located in the Civic Center Plaza. We do have instructions here. I'm not going to open all these pages, but you can see we have lots of links on this web page here. And a couple of these links do specifically talk about the Social Security office and have instructions on all these things I'm going to talk about. But they're located in the Civic Center Plaza. They are open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I know on Google it does say that they close early on Wednesdays, but I had a student worker call them and they did inform us that they are open 9 to 4 Monday through Friday. So one of my many goals, but low priority, is I might have to call them back and try to get them to update that. But I know a few students thought that they closed early Wednesdays, and they did tell us on the phone that they are in fact open 9 to 4. Their office does recommend that students arrive earlier in the day, either morning or early afternoon, because they will only help people who are in their office space as of 4 o'clock. If there's anyone who's out in the hallway because there's a long line after 4 p.m., they will, I have been told by their team that they will turn people away sometimes. And again, they're no longer, since we're out of a lot of the COVID requirements, they are no longer scheduling appointments in advance. So it's only walk-in visits now. Other than that, the other thing, so once they bring that receipt back to us, They should get their card in 2 to 3 weeks after that appointment, and then they need to make sure that they sign the card and bring that original signed card down to the campus hub, CSU 117. And then the campus hub staff will help them update their student record so that we have a social security number on file for them for payroll purposes. So I'm not gonna go through all this information here, but just real briefly talking about renewing students. So if you have a student with an expired work permit or a nearly expired work permit, they don't have to go through this whole process. So what they need to do, I think we have steps up here. So for renewing work permits, you can see the steps here on my screen. Basically, it's usually from 1 or 2 reasons. Either their passport has expired or their I-20 end date has changed. And so all students need to do is upload their passport and I-20 to our on-campus work permit application form. They don't need to schedule a meeting with our team. They just need to upload those items. If they have questions, they can certainly reach out to us, but usually those renewals or extensions go pretty quickly because we just have to verify their updated dates on their immigration documents, and then we can issue them a new work permit pretty quickly. If a student already has a valid on-campus work permit authorization, but they're getting a second job or a new job on campus, they don't have to fill out multiple work permit applications. So all they need to do is bring a copy of their on-campus work permit authorization signed by a KSE staff member to you as their new employer or second employer. And if they ever need a new copy of that, as long as it's still valid, we can print them and print them a copy and sign it. Couple of notes on our processing times for work permits is it does take on average 3 to 5 business days right now. I would say once we get into fall and spring semester, that wait time could go up. Our goal is always to get things processed in that 3 to 5 business days, but with the start of the year, things get really crazy with all the new students and with all the returning students, and so sometimes it can take longer. So that's where it is very important, especially for students that you've already hired in advance. So probably the most of them are going to be the grad assistantships. It is very important that they try to get here a couple of days before their work starts so that we can get all of their work permit taken care of in advance. So our KSE work permit team, we will only email the student's university email. So make sure that they're checking that for updates when their work permit is ready. And we do typically, when we're really busy, we usually only have time to send 1 or 2 emails. So if a student isn't checking their emails or they're not getting back to us, you can always reach out to us and ask questions if you haven't heard from the student, but we usually are pretty busy that we don't have time to reach out to them more than once or twice. Switching gears a little bit for the work authorization form, and I'll let Kayleen talk a little bit about this shortly here, but for our end on the KIC, I do recommend that if any of you need to submit the work authorization form, specifically for a graduate assistantship, I do ask that you wait to submit that form until the student at a minimum has their MNSU issued I-20 and their US visa. If, excuse me, if they don't have those 2 items, there really is no guarantee that they're going to be able to make it here. They may intend to come here, but some students, depending on their situation or what country they're from, when their visa appointment is, they may not be able to get their visa until it's too late, and some students may have to defer or take different options. So really it saves all of us in that queue processing, including you as the hiring department and the student. I think it saves everyone a lot of time and confusion if everyone would be able and willing to wait to submit it until they have the I-20 on their visa. Another point along those lines, and again, I'll let Kayleen talk about this more later, but even if you submit that, I can't route it forward until the student has those 2 things. And even if I am able to route it forward, student payroll, Kayleen can't process that until she has all the on-campus work permit documents anyway. So regardless of when you submit it, it's most likely, if it's submitted way ahead of time, it's usually just going to sit in the queue somewhere until the student completes all the necessary steps. Just to real quickly again go through all those things that a student needs in order to get on-campus work authorization. So we already talked about a couple of them, but I need to make sure on my end that the student has a current US address in e-services. I need to make sure that they've paid their health insurance fee. They need to be registered for classes. They have to work with either myself or one of our immigration advisors to register their CVIS record as active. They need to apply for a social security card if they don't already have one. They need to complete the student payroll tax forms and sign those physically in person. And then lastly, they would need to receive their on-campus work permit authorization form. We call them yellow sheets because they're on yellow sheets of paper. And they would need to hand that to you as their supervisor or hiring department, and that lets you know that they're authorized to work. And then again, just as a reminder, students should not begin working until they hand you that work permit authorization form. If they start work before then that can potentially cause issues, and they, number one, wouldn't get paid, and number two, it could cause issues with their immigration record, because technically students, that would be unauthorized work because they do need to receive authorization in order to work. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I'm just going to go through a couple of kind of last minute points, and then I'll let Kayleen take over. So a couple of important reminders that I've seen just from being here for a little over a year and a half, things that sometimes go wrong for students. Sometimes on the Social Security card application, students do not put their full legal name that matches their immigration documents. If they don't do that, let's say, for example, if they put, maybe some students use a nickname, or they use a, maybe they use their middle name instead of their first name. That's fine, and that's something that, you know, we can enter in their preferred name information for our records and for communication, but when it comes to their Social Security card and their Social Security appointment, it does need to be their full legal name that matches their immigration documents. If it's not, the university will not accept it as part of their records, and then we unfortunately need to have the students, and we've had this happen a couple of times, we need to have the student go and reapply for an updated Social Security card. My number one biggest thing that I tell students all the time is communication is key. So if you ever have a student that is confused on something, or they're stuck on a step, or maybe you have questions on things, Kayleen and I are very approachable. Or anytime we're on campus, we always try to make ourselves available for any questions you or the students have. So please, if you have questions, reach out to us. Don't be afraid to call us, stop by, email, Teams, whatever works best for you, and we can do our best to help you. I think it's always better to communicate ahead of time and ask questions than to sort of blindly do things, and then it can cause potential confusion. Other than that, and I already touched on this, but just please remember to not have students start working until they have that signed work authorization from us. We have had a few issues in the past with students starting early, and then unfortunately they may not get paid on time, or there may be certain issues that they run into because of that. So I think that's everything that I have. So I'm going to turn it over to Kayleen here. Just bear with me. Do you want to use my screen, or you can just talk it?
Yeah, I think everybody can see me, and hopefully they can hear me. So I'm just going to go through a few things, a couple of questions that I see quite a bit from the student payroll side. One thing I know I get asked quite a bit, and I think Blake even gets asked this too, is how will the students know when they're entered into the student payroll system and everything has gone through? So once the student's work permit is approved and processed and it comes to student payroll, I will enter it into the student payroll system, and at that point, the students will actually receive a notice. We call it a wage notice through e-services, and that will give them, you know, basically all of their information. What we have is their start date, their pay rate, but at that point, then they will know they are entered into the system. They have access to e-time at that point and can start entering their hours. Another question I get sometimes, the student payroll system will automatically end work assignments based on the work permit end date. And so sometimes I get a question where the student says, I no longer have access to enter my hours in e-time. And almost always it's because their work permit has expired, and so they would need to then go through the steps that Blake was talking through for renewing that work permit process. The other thing, and this is pretty important, the one thing I really want to make sure everyone is aware of are the maximum working hour restrictions for the students. So for undergraduates, they can work a maximum of 20 hours during the academic year, 40 hours during the summer. You want to keep in mind, if the students are working multiple positions, that those hours, the 20 hours and 40 hours, that's for all the positions combined. Graduates, if they're graduate assistants, the maximum hours are 20. If they're a graduate student and they're just working regular student help, then it's 14. It's important to monitor those really closely because if the students go over, it's considered unauthorized employment, and it could lead to potential issues with their immigration and possibly their CVIS record being terminated. So I know Blake and we do monitor it closely. I get a report in payroll, but it is important for the students and the supervisors to be aware and to be making sure that the students aren't going over those maximum hours. I don't have a lot of other things to add. Like I said, this is gonna be my first fall, so I'm learning also. But if you have questions, feel free to email, call, stop by, and I'd be happy to help you anytime.
Great, thank you. So I think that's everything we had for the two of you here today. Do either of you have, you can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and let us know if you have any questions at all, general questions, specific case questions. Now would be the time to ask us.
I do have a question, Blake.
Yeah.
If we've already put in the graduate assistantship start date and end date, because we have that one student that might not get here and have her stop in time for the start date when we had planned on. How does that work if they're getting their stipend for $5,000 if they're a 20-hour-a-week grad assistant, but they don't start on time?
I think, Kayleen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you would have to submit, would you submit a change request or would you have to terminate it and submit a new one?
No, it could be a change request. We would just need the updated date, and then if the amount is going to be changed based on that start date, it would just need to be noted in the comments also.
So if we wanted to still be a full intern or full assistantship for the 5,000, we wouldn't put anything, just their start date would be different, and then it would just average out that $5,000 from then to the end of the semester. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
their bi-weekly payments would just increase.
Okay, makes sense. And if you want it to be less, then I would make a note in the comments.
Yeah, and you might want to put in the comments just that the amount is staying the same, just so that there's no questions.
I didn't hear that because there was a noise here. What did you say?
If you want to in the comments, even if the amount isn't changing, just note that that the amount is staying the same, just so there's no questions.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think for me, that takes care of it. So if I have any other questions, I will reach out to either one of you. Thank you so much.
No
You're
problem.
very welcome. Mai Chong, did you have any questions for us?
No, I was just here to listen since I've only hired one GA last fall, and I think everything's going good. So I'm gonna have to rehire again for this current fiscal year, and we're still searching. So I'm just listening in to see if there's anything new or anything that has changed during the process. So I think you've covered pretty much everything. So we're good for now.
Awesome. Well, I know you have my contact information, so if you think of anything, you can always let me know. Otherwise, thanks for joining us, and hope you have a good rest of your week.
Yep, you too. Thank you, Kaylee.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you both. Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye.